Hey, greetings everyone. Daniel Lowrie from Antisyphon Training back in the hot seat with another episode in our Networking Fundamentals series. Today we're taking a look at Wi-Fi. We're going to learn a little bit about the old Wi-Fi. How do we use this wonderful technology that gives us such freedom to connect to our networks? What are some of the particulars about that we need to know about that? Great question. Let's dig in because we actually do have quite a bit of information to get through today. And to help us do that, I've created this infographic for us to help work our way through Wi-Fi Fundamentals, our quick guide for wireless networks. So the first place we need to start is understanding Wi-Fi bands, the speed, range, and interference that comes with each. Now I have each band laid out right here for us. So I've got the 2.4 gigahertz band, the 5 gigahertz band, and the 6 gigahertz band. That's what we're going to work with today. And in each one of those columns, we're going to look at individual attributes like speed, range, and penetration, interference, compatibility, and what it's best suited for, and how we typically end up using one technology over the other. So let's start here with the 2.4 gigahertz band in speed. Let's look at these speeds. This is the slowest of our bands, and unfortunately, you still do see this from time to time. It does have its pros and cons, which we will see momentarily, but if you are looking for high speed, the 2.4 gigahertz range is not going to be your best bet. We're going to be looking for other bands like 5 gigahertz, much faster. Where we're capped out at about 100 megabits per second over the 2.4, we get like up to a gigabit per second with the 5 gigahertz band, so much faster. We also have the new 6 gigahertz band. It's been around for a little bit now, so it's still fairly bleeding edge technology. It can give us greater than 2 gigabits per second of speed. So this is definitely the speediest of all the ranges that we can take a look at here. But we got to know the difference between those. And if you are looking for very fast and speedy connections, that's going to be the way you want to go. But as you'll see, as we work our way through some of these other rows, it has its drawbacks, right? So let's take a look at range, penetration. So with 2.4 gigahertz band, we have a much wider coverage. It works better working its way through walls, these obstructions, things that could stop it. Since it's a larger wavelength, it does much better at penetrating through obstacles, right? Through matter. Now, when you jump over to the 5 gigahertz band, though, it's a shorter range, doesn't give you nearly as much distance, and it is weaker at penetrating through walls, and that's because it is a shorter wavelength. And then, of course, the 6 gigahertz is even shorter, and therefore it's going to be the weakest at penetrating through solid objects. So these are things that we're going to take into account as we're setting up our networks and maybe even troubleshooting if a problem does arise. All right, so let's take a look at interference. These are caused by things that are utilizing the same frequencies that we are working with. So in the 2.4 gigahertz range, it's fairly congested. The reason is due to the fact that 2.4 gigahertz was the standard for wireless and other devices that use radio frequencies for quite some time. I remember like you would buy a cordless phone back in the day, and they would all say 2.4 gigahertz on there. Microwaves tend to work at 2.4 gigahertz as well. That's why they can cause interference with your wireless signal if you're using the 2.4 gigahertz range. So keep that in mind. Let's see, your Bluetooth also uses 2.4 gigahertz. So a lot of things that could cause issues when it comes to interference. Now, when you move to 5 gigahertz, a different story, right? There's more non-overlapping channels. We'll get to more about that in a little bit. So keep that pinned away. Put that on the wall for later. And then, of course, in the 6 gigahertz range, this is minimal. It's very exclusive. It's very vast. It has a clean spectrum. Not a lot of devices occupy that space at this point in time. So you have a fairly good shot at having uncongested, less interference networks. Let's move into the idea of compatibility. With 2.4, you got high compatibility. Even newer devices can speak that old 2.4 language, and we do that for backwards compatibility. And because it was the standard for quite some time, most things do work in that 2.4 gigahertz range. Therefore, it's a really good chance that if you've got a wireless device, it'll function if you've got a 2.4 gigahertz wireless access. Move over to 5 gigahertz, and you can see it's a little more moderate, right? This is where we're kind of bridging the gap. You probably see where the trend is going here. 2.4, widely adopted. 5 gigahertz, okay, it's been around for a while, but it's become much more popular within the near past and not such a distant past, and therefore it's going to be less compatible because all those older devices are still kind of kicking around. And if you have newer devices and you need to work with older devices, then you get compatibility issues there. You start to get the idea. All right, let's take a look at 6 gigahertz, and this is going to be our lowest compatibility. Again, pros and cons. So with 6 gigahertz range, you have a low, newest Wi-Fi, 6E devices, 7 devices, even 8 now. Those are going to be the only things that work on those networks. They'll probably be backward compatible with the 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz ranges. So these devices will work with older systems, but older systems don't necessarily work with new devices if they only support that range. So there you go. All right, so use case scenario, right? Best for. 2.4 is going to be the IoT, right? We like IoT. Gives it a lot of distance, especially if you're using things like webcams that are outside your house or at your building. You need some more distance. You need to be able to penetrate through solid objects like walls, concrete, wood, so on and so forth. It's going to be great for that. Better for that long-range distance, even though it is a little bit of older tech. 5 gigahertz is going to give you a great user interaction when it comes to, or user experience when it comes to streaming, gaming, high bandwidth in the same room, right? Because it doesn't spread out as far, and the farther away you get, the more trouble you run into. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But if you need that super, super high speed, low drag, as fast as humanly possible, that's that 6 gigahertz range. You're going to be able to do things like virtual reality, augmented reality, 8K video, ultra low latency, and it's a little future-proof. Since it's the latest of technologies, it's got the longest shelf life, most likely, right? So those are the things you got to keep in mind when it comes to these wireless ranges and which one you want to use and what you're going to deploy. Hopefully that helps you work that out a little bit. You got to kind of weigh and balance the idea of distance, speed, compatibility. Lots of stuff goes into what you might run into as far as setting up your wireless network. All right. That said, let's get into the idea of signal strength, right? Because the stronger the signal, the better the connection. The weaker the signal, the lower the connection. It will actually reduce the amount of bandwidth that you get, the weaker that the signal becomes. So we got to be able to understand these things. Let's jump back in. Signal strength is measured in decibel milliwatts, or dBMs, as it were. And the numbers that you see associated with the strength itself they're going to be negative numbers. You'll notice this says negative 30. That says negative 50, negative 60, and so on and so forth. And the real idea that you need to take away from it is the closer to 0 equals stronger signal. So the closer you get to 0, you're going to have the better signal, okay? So I've worked out a couple of ranges that could be helpful as a standard for us here. So negative 30 dBm to negative 50 dBm, that's going to be an excellent signal, right? You're going to get max speed and reliability. You're not dropping frames. You're getting that 60, 100 frames per second. You're playing games. You're doing live streams. This is going to be what you want. So if you're going to set that stuff up and you want to have the best experience possible, you're going to want to make sure that that signal shows up within that range, okay? And better than 30 would be better, right? So if you're in the 20s or the teens or even lower, that means you're getting even better signal. All right, 51 dBm to 60 dBm, you're still pretty good. Stable for most of your everyday tasks. 61 dBm to 70 dBm, this is where things start to degrade a little bit. It's usable, but you're probably going to need to expect a little, oh, I dropped a few frames there. Oh, I'm getting a little pixelation. You're starting to see slowdowns and things of that nature. Getting down lower into 71 dBm to 80 dBm or negative 80, right? These are all negative numbers. This is where you start to have a weak signal. It's unreliable. You get frequent drops. So if you're doing a live stream, you're probably going to cut out a bit. You're going to lose microphone. You're going to lose audio. You're going to lose video. You're going to drop frames if you're gaming. This is no bueno. This is not what we want. So if you see that, maybe it's time to replace your router or do something else to gain that signal strength back up. And of course, if it's below 80, this is basically unusable, right? Just forget it. You're going to have such difficulty connecting, staying connected, streaming, doing whatever it is that you're going to do. That's going to be a problem, and you're going to need to reevaluate how you have your network set up. All right, so there's a couple of factors that will affect this. That's going to be things like distance. The farther you get away from your router, the less likely the signal will be strong, especially if you're working in those 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz ranges. So just keep that in mind. Don't forget about obstacles, walls, furniture, water. It doesn't matter. If it's a solid object, if it has mass, it could be causing you interference as an obstacle because it interferes with the wavelength making its way from your device to the access point itself. Other interferences are going to include things like electronics, your neighbor's Wi-Fi, right? So other electronics working on those same frequencies might cause issues. Back in days past, it was not uncommon for people to call up at lunch and say, hey, every time at lunch we lose our wireless connectivity. What's going on? Well, you go to the office and you look and you go, is that your wireless access point sitting on top of that microwave? And they go, yes, it is. Isn't that a great place to put it? Not really, especially if it's an older one that's working in the 2.4 gigahertz range. They operate in the same frequency spectrum. Therefore, probably when you cook that burrito, you're dropping the Wi-Fi signal. And then when Sally comes in to heat up last night's lo mein, you're interfering with the Wi-Fi signal. So that was a very common thing in years past. We've learned a little bit about things from now, and we've evolved, we've moved on, but it still could be a problem, still could be causing interference. All right, again, router placement. Don't put it on top of the microwave. Get it away from electronic interference. And also you want to really worry about where it's going to be centrally located, because the signal emanates out in a sphere, right? In a spherical pattern. It goes out in all directions. It's not omnidirectional. You can do that. You can have antennas that have an omnidirectional signal, or a unidirectional signal, a directional path that says from here to here. That's where I want it to go. But that's not as common as omnidirectional signals and antennas, both for the host device itself and the access point. If you need that straight shot, you can hook that stuff up, but that's kind of a need to do and not necessarily a normal thing that happens. All right. And that does bring up the idea of antenna orientation. If it does have antennas, you want them to be orientated in the most useful way possible. If they are directional antennas, you want to point it toward where you want the signal to go. And of course, you want the receiving antenna to do the exact same thing. So just keep that in mind if antennas are involved. If they're omnidirectional antennas, you might want to spread them out in as many directions as possible. Some have multiple antennas, giving you multiple, like the MIMO, the multi-in, multi-out kind of idea going on there. And then, of course, device quality. Don't forget, you get what you pay for in life. That's just one of those hard, cold facts. So if you bought your stuff off Temu, nothing wrong with that. I'm not here to tech shame you. But it very well may not have the same kind of robust capabilities because it was built with cheaper components. It's just the way the world works. It's just how it goes. It might not be able to handle the power. It might not have the power. It might not be doing as advertised. There might, if you crack open the box and look inside, maybe they gave you something that you didn't actually pay for. And that is something we have to look out for. So if we buy cheaper stuff, we can expect it to not have the power we need from time to time for making those connections, and it could affect our signal. Okay, next thing we need to talk about is Wi-Fi channels. Wi-Fi channels are going to be a useful thing for you to understand when it comes to getting your best experience possible with your wireless. Let's jump into this. These are your data lanes, as I like to put it, right? So you think of this as lanes on a highway for your Wi-Fi data. You choose a clear lane, and it's going to minimize collisions and improve the flow, just like it is on the highway. If you got on the highway and you saw that 3 lanes are completely congested, but that, the one lane is over here on the left and there's nobody in it, you're going to be able to go much faster. You're going to be able to move a whole lot easier. That's because there's not a lot of cars in your way jamming things up. Same goes for the channels in our networks. So if you have your spectrum, right, you got your 2.4 gigahertz or your 5 gigahertz, each one of those things has a lane. And then, of course, we have overlapping lanes or overlapping channels. These lanes and channels are something we need to worry about. If I'm allowing cars from other lanes to use my lane because they overlap, That's going to increase the amount of traffic and therefore increase the congestion, making a much less great experience, right? So let's get in here. 2.4 gigahertz channels, limited non-overlapping channels. That means they have a lot of overlapping channels. That's a really bad way. I shouldn't have put it that way. So there's only channels 1, 6, and 11 that do not overlap with other channels. Okay? Congestion is a risk with this. Even non-overlapping channels can get crowded. So because most people that know about 2.4 gigahertz range, or even the people that are creating your access device itself, know that, hey, 1, 6, and 11 are non-overlapping channels. We'll set that to be the default channel. Well, what ends up happening is then everybody's on channel 11. Everybody's on channel 6. So now you have more cars. You're only using one lane, but you have more cars in that lane anyway, even though it doesn't overlap because everybody's using it. So Wi-Fi Analyzer is going to help us out with that. We're going to take a look at that in just a second here. So just keep that in mind that co-channel interference could also cause slowdowns. All right, 5 gigahertz, more non-overlapping channels, which is good to know. That means there are more lanes available. That reduces the interference. And we have wider channels, supports wider lanes. I can get more, the car analogy kind of breaks down at this point because I can't have wider cars. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, unless I'm packing more people into the wider car, I guess that could help. But here are the lanes that we have: 40, 80, 160 megahertz channels, and that allows for higher data throughput. And of course, 6 gigahertz is going to be super awesome because it's like the turnpike they just built. Nobody's on it quite yet. It's fast as all get out because there's nobody there, and it's got high speeds that are available. It's awesome. So it's vast and clean spectrum, huge number of brand new, non-overlapping, entirely clean channels. So this is what we want if we can get away with it. If you do have the means, I highly recommend. Ultra-wide channel supports incredibly wide multi-lane highways, up to 320 megahertz in Wi-Fi 7 for peak performance. So obviously that is going to be what we want if we can get away with it. And a couple of tips that we can use to optimize our Wi-Fi: use a Wi-Fi analyzer. We'll take a look at it here in just a second. These things will help us look at what channels are being used, how many access points are around us, what could be causing interference, what our signal strength is looking like, all that lovely stuff right there. And then we can go into our router and manually select less congested channels on our router. We do that manually. It's most likely set automatic by default. We can go in there and say, hey, I've noticed that through Wi-Fi analysis, or analysis is the right term there. Through that analysis, I've realized that even though channel 3 is an overlapping channel, there's not a lot of traffic there. So maybe that would be a better place to put it. I can also reduce interference by choosing those clear channels. All right, so let's go take a look at a Wi-Fi analyzer. Now, there's Wi-Fi analyzers all over the place. You can go to Google Play Store, get one for your phone. If you're running iPhones, go to the App Store. They have them there as well. There's a lot of great ones out there and really nice things that show you all the things like signal strength, do heat maps, all sorts of fun stuff. This isn't necessarily a tutorial on how to do that, but I did want to show you what that looks like. I'm going to use a very simple one for my system, for my Linux PC here. Let's jump into here. I have this one's called LinSSID, right? The service set identifier. That's what SSID stands for. By the way, there's BSSID, the basic service set identifier, which is the MAC address for your access point. And then there's the the ESSID, which is the extended service set identifier. I can get it right. My brain does work from time to time. And that's basically the network name that you see and you connect to. But if I choose my adapter and I click play, this will start scanning wireless networks, and we give it a moment and you start to see it's populating with information. Cool. I can see SSIDs, and this is the ESSID because I'm seeing the network names for these devices. I have MAC addresses. I can tell what channel these things are on. I can look down here in the graph in the 2.4 gigahertz, and I can see all these different devices that are connecting over that, or at least broadcasting in that range. And I can pick those up, and I can see here there's stuff on channel 6, there's stuff on channel 1, and there's stuff on channel 11. But it looks like channel 6 is the least or maybe channel 1. These look much less populated than channel 11 right over here. So if I wanted to make sure I had the best signal possible, I'd probably go pick channel 1. It looks like there might be 2 devices on channel 6. Channel 1 looks like it only has 1. So under that analysis, I'd probably pick 1, and that could give me the better signal. I've also got 5 gigahertz channels. I can see what's activated in those ranges. I got some over here. Oh, I don't know if you can see that, but there's one over in the 150, 160, but I also have what's more common, which is going to be in that 40 to 50-ish range in that megahertz for 5 gigahertz channels. Now, if we come back up to the top here, I've got things like frequencies. I can see what frequency they're working on. 5220 or the 5 gigahertz range. 2412 also going to be within that 2.4 gigahertz range. There's another one at 2462. There's another one in 57, again, working in that 5 gigahertz range. And then I see that signal. Oh, yeah, the signal's where it's all at because I want to see what that strength is all about. Where's my strongest signal? I see some in the 20s, and that's great, right? Because in the 20s means I've got a very, very strong signal. I should be getting excellent signal with this. Then I've got some over here in the 80s. Here's one in the 60s, but as we know, if it's over 80, this is going to be a bad time. It also tells me what protocols this supports, meaning is it Wi-Fi or 802.11a, 802.11b, 802.11g, and this looks like it supports BG, N, and AC. So 802.11b, G, N, and AC. Just to make sure those all didn't run together. Or Beginak. Sounds Klingon. What's your wireless? What's your Wi-Fi name? Beginak. What protocol does this support? Beginak. Beginak? Yeah, that's fun. Anyway, having a good time. Moving on. All right, so there you go. That's a Wi-Fi analyzer. Again, it was a very basic one, but you can go find another one, and it could do a lot of really cool stuff for you. Last thing I want to take a look at is some of the functionality. Like if I wanted to change those channels and I want to set it manually, where would that be? Let's take a look at some of the router interface common options that you might see. So I've got a router interface here for a Netgear router. If I go over to this wireless area and I click on that, I might have some options to be able to change certain things. Like I can see down here that I have the SSID name. I can change that. Oh, look, this says channel right there. Channel, right? We like channel right there. And I can come over here where it says auto and I can change that to whatever channel that I want it to be. Oh, my mouse is having a little fun day today. So if I wanted to put it on 1, booyah, I'm done. I've got it, right? So that would be how I would do that in this specific model. I can change the mode. I can add security options. I can put a passphrase in for management capabilities. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do. You can see it supports wireless network 5 gigahertz that we were working up in the 2.4 gigahertz range. And you can see that says BG and N right there. But if I wanted to come down here for A and N for the 5 gigahertz range, I would have that option as well. I can change those channels. I can change the mode. I can add some security, right? So that's a Netgear. I also have a Linksys router up as well. If I wanted to, I would go into connectivity. And under here, oh, is it? No, I'm sorry. It's not connectivity. I think it is wireless. There it is. Under wireless. And then right there, I can see I've got the 2.4 gigahertz range. I can edit these things. I can change all those options like channel width and the channel that it's on. I can come over to the 5 gigahertz range, click edit, and then you have the option to make those changes here as well, right? So really cool stuff. Those are typically built into your wireless access points, your wireless routers. So if you wanted to go and make those changes, maybe spin up something like NSSID or get one for your phone, even better. Now you can figure out the best spot in your house to put your wireless access point so it has the most coverage with the best signal, less interference. If you need to, you can also get into things like wireless extenders, mesh networks. These are going to be really good for if you have a large area to cover. You need to get that connectivity. Well, you're going to want to put one of those things on there and it'll extend that network out and make sure that you are able to get to where you need to go. We'll talk security about this a little more when we get into the security episode of our networking show, but I think we're good for now. We got a lot of information on our plate, so I'm going to let you take that home and digest it and enjoy. Hopefully now you know a little bit more about your wireless network connectivity, how that works, and some of those things that could be helpful for you to optimize that for your better experience. That said, thanks for watching. If you like this episode, you know what to do. Find the like and subscribe. Give us a good old thumbs up and let your friends know by sharing. Hey, check this out. If you need to know about wireless, Daniel's got you covered, right? Antisyphon Training, we're constantly trying to put out great content for you for free, right? This doesn't cost you nothing. You just get to watch it and enjoy it. Speaking of, you can go to antisyphontraining.com and see what we've got coming up. New events, webinars, things of that nature. We also have on-demand training, very cool stuff. So if you want to get that cybersecurity training you've been looking for, we might have what you're looking for there. Also check out powered by BHIS.com, which has a full spectrum of what we are up to in the current future. So if you want to see what we're getting at, maybe you want to come and be a part of it, you can check those out, get those dates and times, get registered for things. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see you there, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. And until next time, have a great day.